Okay, great. Well, hi everyone. Welcome to our second masterclass webinar series. Today, I'm not talking so much about accounting, a little bit about process and working smarter, not harder. We will do a little bit of work within Xero to show you some quick tips on how to maybe save a little bit of time, but it's not really hugely accounting orientated today. I have got Jen. She's monitoring this today. So if there's any issues or if you have questions, there is a chat feature there. So feel free to put some notes into the chat feature. And at the end, we'll have question time and Jen can ask me the questions and hopefully I can answer them. So let's go to the first slide, shall we? Okay, so you probably know who this guy is, Albert Einstein, and you've probably heard this saying before. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And there's so many of the processes that we do have maybe not changed in many years, but the times are definitely changing. And we've got this thing called technology, which makes our life so much easier if we use it. And yes, it might be scary. And yes, it might mean our jobs won't be there. But one thing's for sure, that they will look different in the future. And so now's the time to start thinking about what you're doing, how you're doing it, and how you can use technology to make life easier for you and to be more efficient, but also acknowledging that your competitors are probably using technology as well. So if they're using it and you're not, you're falling behind. So that's really important, that we can't just ignore it anymore, essentially. So what are we going to talk about today? So first of all, we're going to talk a little bit about the pace of technology, which may scare you a little. Scared me when I was writing this. We're going to go back to the first webinar that we did, which was about knowing your numbers. And I'm going to go through a little bit of stuff with Xero on how to make sure that we do know our numbers, because we've talked about knowing the numbers and understanding how to read them, but how to make sure what we're actually reading is, oh, Rob's popped up on the screen. Hi, Rob. If you don't want to be on the video, you can maybe go on to off screen, because otherwise, that's perfect. Otherwise, you'll be on YouTube when we post this later. So you can ask questions later and I'll be happy to chat to you then. So basically, yeah, we're going to go to Xero. Now, the things I'm going to talk about with Xero are completely adaptable for other programs such as MYOB or probably QBO, but they're the two main ones we use. We're going to talk a little bit about the costs and benefits of technology, which I'll explain when we get to it. A couple of hacks that I use most days to be more efficient. And then we are going to talk a little bit about AI and how I'm using it to make my life easier. I'm not an expert. It's something I'm really interested in though. So this is just a little taste of some of the things I'm doing. So let's start with the pace of change. And this sort of freaked me out a little bit, but there have been a couple of different studies done on the amount of data an average person today is processing on a daily basis. And this study that I'm referring to, there's like a study that said it was 34 gigabytes a day and another one that said 74 gigabytes a day. And that was done in 2017. So that's quite old. I was trying to find an updated version. There wasn't anything. But the 74 gigabytes a day is the equivalent of watching 16 movies. Now, have a think about that. Sitting there in a day and watching 16 movies back to back, that would be quite a lot. In fact, it's impossible. But this is the amount of data an average person today is consuming. The other scary thing is every year it is about 5% more than the previous year, and that figure came out in 2017. 500 years ago, 74 gigabytes of data is what a highly educated person would have consumed in their lifetime. So this is so much information that's going into our heads on a daily basis. So no wonder we're feeling tired. I guess I just wanted to explain we are living in a completely different time, even to when we were, like, some of us who are a little older were at school. Everything is changing rapidly. So how long has it been since you looked at what you're doing and considered how you could be doing things better? a lot of people I talk to sort of like very set in their ways. We like using this technology, or we like doing things by pen and paper, or we have always done it this way, so why would we change? But my question to you is, what is stopping you from actually considering how you could change your processes and make them a more efficient process? Is it the fear of change? Is it the cost of it? Or is it just that technology makes us feel too difficult, or makes it all feel too difficult? And I just want to remind you of COVID, which was 5 years ago now, that we all had to suddenly change and we all had to go home and work, and how quickly we adapted to that situation. We had a situation where we suddenly had to either take our computers home or try and find a way to log into our computers at work, which we weren't allowed to do. We had to use Zoom meetings. It was quite daunting at the start, and now nearly everyone can use Zoom. I have very few clients who are not able to use Zoom, regardless of their age. So we can do it. We just need to take the time to actually work it out and to play with it a bit and know how to use it, and probably not be super scared of the technology. I feel like we're all getting better at that, but there are still people who are going, I don't want to change. So this is what's called the Rogers Bell Curve, and some of you may have seen this before, but this was actually comes from back in 1956, where a guy by the name of Everett Rogers, he sort of started looking at farmers back in the 1950s and how they were able to adapt to innovation and change within their farming practices. And he started to notice that there was actually like a standard deviation. So for those of you who remember doing maths and standard deviation, you may recall looking at this curve in the past. But there's actually a standard deviation on the ability to change. So you have people who are considered innovators, and that's a very small percentage. They're the people who get in really early and start doing things. Most of us aren't innovators. To be an innovator, you really have to be someone almost seeing into the future. And then we have early adopters. Then we have the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards. And the thing is with these, always happens when I'm in Goulburn. There's an ambulance going past now, so apologies for the sirens. So we have a think about this. Actually tends to be the same for any kind of innovation. It's not necessarily just related to farming in 1956. And if you have a think about it at the moment, we have, particularly in relation to AI, we had those early innovators who actually even understood what AI is. We've got the early adopters. And then I feel like realistically, where we're sitting at the moment is we're starting to move into the early majority in regard of AI, whereas a few months ago we may have still been in early adopters. That's how quickly the pace is changing. And it probably depends on your industry and how your industry is responding to AI, as to where it is sitting. But where you want to be realistically is in that early adopter stage, because if you can get in there first, or in the beginning of the early majority, then you're going to be a little bit ahead of the curve, quite literally. So have a think about that, and where are you sitting on your journey with technology, and technology particularly within your business. You certainly don't want to be a laggard. Okay, so now we're going to talk about knowing your numbers, and this is where we're going to go back and have a little look at Xero. Like I said, most of these things I'm going to show you within Xero are going to be transferable to other technologies that you might be using, such as MYOB. It's just that Xero give us a thing called a demo company, so I can really demonstrate that stuff. If I was to try and do it on MYOB, I don't have a demo company, which means I'd have to create one, and I certainly don't have time to do that. But what I want to point out before we go on to that is it's really impossible to know how your business is performing without a way of measuring it. And we did talk about this in the last webinar. But not only is it that we want to be able to measure it, but we want to have those numbers at our hands quickly. There's really very little point in looking at numbers that are a year old to try and tell us how we're performing today, because things are changing quickly. And it doesn't always just equate to what's in your bank account as to how you're performing. So have a think about how quickly you're getting your numbers produced, and is there something that you could be doing to get those done quicker? It might be that you need to outsource it to someone else, or you need to start, getting more out of the product that you're using. So if you're using software, which I'm certainly hoping you are you using it effectively? Do you need some lessons? I mean, maybe it's a case of sitting with one of our team and having a couple of hours or an hour or two of just lessons to see if they're doing this as well as you can be, or is there something we can be doing better? Are you able to ask questions? Are you able to question your numbers to verify them? So often I'll look at people's accounts and straight away I'll go, that looks wrong, we're doing something wrong here. But unless you actually can read the numbers, it does make it a little bit difficult. Again, having an accountant help you to look at your numbers and read them would probably help you a lot. And also help you to understand what questions you need to ask. And as I said, it all comes down to the quality of the information and how quickly it can be produced. So garbage in, garbage out. But I feel like we have products now that make it so much easier for us to have some very good numbers that we can look at all the time. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. Hopefully it's going to let me do that. And now I'm going to see if I can share instead our Xero file. So, okay, so here's our Xero file. Jen, can you just pop in and say, yes, I can see that?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Okay. So for those of you who haven't seen this before, Xero do give us a demonstration company, which is great. So thank you for putting that message up. I thought I'd said I'm out of first, but anyway, that's okay. So Xero have this demonstration company and we can play around with it. The information is not perfect and sometimes you'll find that some of the stuff doesn't quite make sense, but at least it's something you can play with. And so I just wanted to show you a couple of things. So first of all, the one thing I wanted to show you is the report that I use on a daily basis to check my accounts. And how you do that. So a lot of people don't go, well, where do I start? Like I look at my dashboard and I can see how much I've got in the bank account. I can see a couple of things. I don't actually even know what I'm looking at. So the first report that I always start with each day is I go up here to, well, I'll show you how to star it or how to save it, but I go to the profit and loss report. So profit and loss is to me the bread and butter of what I'm doing. If I'm not making money, I shouldn't be doing it. And I want to know how I'm going. So when you go into the profit and loss report, it always defaults to the current month. And that might tell me a little bit, tells me about what I've done so far in April, but I kind of want to see a little bit more than that. So what I always do is I go up here and I compare it. And I can compare it with either a couple of months or potentially the whole year to date so far. So you can go 4 months, which is usually what I do, or you can enter a different number. So we might want to say 6 months. And then we also want to go over here to more, and we want to do year to date. If I update that, what that's going to give me is, hopefully in a second, it's thinking. Maybe we're too busy on the internet. Okay, so what it's going to give me is basically the last 6 months. Now, clearly this is demo data. So like I said, there's nothing happening in the those first 2 months. But it's going to give us the information and it's also going to give me my year-to-date figures. So what that helps me to do is to compare. It helps me to compare that, what my sales are for each month, helps me to look at all the expenses. Do they look right? It also shows me my profit per month and then my profit year-to-date. So what I always use this report. I generally do it for 4 months rather than 6. And then once I've actually gone into that report, if I want to do more months than that, I can. But usually the last 4 months, the ones that are most relevant, the year to date will include those other months in the year that haven't been shown on that report. The other thing you can do is as you hover over these things, if there's something that you're not sure of, such as advertising, You can click on that, and then that will give you the context of what's in that figure, and you can have a look at it and go, okay, that's why my advertising's a bit bigger that time. So I'm just going to go backwards to my report. And if you do like this report and you're happy with it, what you can then do is save it as a custom report. So if I save this as custom and I call it profit and loss, Jo's favorite, and I hit save, we haven't spelled that right. It then means next time when I want to run that report, I don't have to go and format it again. So there might be other things you want to do within your formatting, which again, we can help you with. So how I would find that is now when I go to reports, instead of going to profit and loss over here, I'm going to click on custom, and Jo's favorite is going to be there. So that will automatically update for me each time. And then if I want to change it from here to 6 months or to 3 months or whatever months I can, and it will still be the same report. So that's how to do that. Now, I know I went through this last time, but I am going to just remind you how to upload payables, because if we're looking at a profit and loss report and the report has not got our payables in it, so this is only telling us what we've actually spent money on at the moment, it could look completely different if we have a whole lot of bills that we still need to pay. So I know this demo company is showing that we're running at a loss, but we could be looking at our reports and going, wow, we're doing so well, we're running at a profit, everything's great. But over in the background is a whole lot of stuff that we still have to pay, and it's not showing us the right figures. So looking at our numbers that don't have accounts payable in it can be very, very, can trick us into thinking that we're doing better than we are. So how do we start to make sure that we keep track of our accounts payable? So accounts payable is found here under business, under bills to pay. And there are a couple of ways of keeping track of this. So first of all, you can actually you can send your email, you can send an email directly from your emails over to Xero. So if we want to go in here to automated bill entry, you will find that there's a very unique email address. You copy that, stick it into your emails, and then you literally forward your email to that. When you forward your email to this address, it will sit up here under draft, and you can then go in and use that draft to go and enter that bill. So it will sit there. So get into the habit of, hey, I've got this Telstra bill, or I've just got this bill from a supplier. I just forward it over to that email address, and it will be sitting there in draft, so you don't have to go and find it. The other thing we can do from here is we can upload a bill. So we can actually find a bill, drag it over here. And I did demonstrate this last time. We can just drag it in. So makes it much easier. It will come up with the picture, it will come of the bill, it will come up with as much data as it can read. And the better you get at this, the more that you will be able to, it will start to AI read your invoices, and it will start to get them fairly quickly processed. It doesn't take you very long to do this, and I have got into the habit of doing this myself now. Previously, I'd go, yeah, I know that's got to be paid. I'll pay it when I have to pay it. But actually pulling those invoices across so I can look at my numbers and go, hey, I'm not doing as well as I thought because I've got all these bills I have to pay, has made a big difference to my numbers. So another thing I wanted to show you was this, and some of you might know how to do all this stuff, but I'm just trying to give you a few tips as well, is this accounting watch list, this accounts watch list. And in your day-to-day businesses, you might go, there's certain things I want to keep a track of. One of them for me on my watch list is sales, for sure. I want to know where my sales are all the time. So it's telling me that this month, to date, we've done 2,945 sales, and year to date, we've done $54,000 worth of sales. So it's all constantly being updated. It means I don't have to go in and run my P&L to see those figures. It's on my dashboard, it's in my face. But if there's something you want in there, how you get that onto your dashboard is you go to accounting, you go to chart of accounts, and you find the particular thing that you want to have on your dashboard. So let's have a look and find an expense account that we might want. Let's make it advertising. And what we do is we open that and we click on here to show on dashboard watch list, hit save. And now if we go to our dashboard, we will find that accounting, advertising is here too. So it's just a good way. Now, you don't want to have your whole chart of accounts there because it'll get confusing. But for some of you, there'll be certain expenses that you really want to keep track of. Other things maybe you're not so worried about. You can look at them in the P&L. So that's how you add that to your dashboard to make it a little bit easier to keep track of that. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you is how you can maybe speed up the preparation of an invoice by using items. And I'm not sure how many of you are using these items, but just to show you how they work. So if we go up here to doing an invoice, you've actually got this thing down the bottom called products and services where you can set them up. But we're going to just go in and create a new invoice. And we're going to set up something that will make, now I'm going to do this invoice to myself because I know I'm in here. We can set a default for due date, or you can click on this to make it easier. And then we can come in here and pick an item, or we can set up a new item. I'm going to set up a new item so that you can see how it works. So we're going to give it a code and we're going to call it tax for business. And it's not an inventory item. It's really just something that we're selling. So if we're going to do inventory, this is where we do it, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to have sale here. If we want, we can set up a sale price. It might be something that we always sell as the same amount. So it might be that you have an hourly rate that you charge yourself out at. It might be that you have a particular product that you sell and it's always the same thing. So let's say that the sale price for this is $300. We want it to always go to the sales account and it has GST on it. And on the description, we're going to put whatever, prepared by Jo, a meeting, I don't know, whatever it is. And we're going to hit save. So that's going to come up into my invoice. Now, next time I go to do that in an invoice the same, all I have to do is go and pick that item and it's all going to pre-populate for me. So I don't have to sit there and type in heaps and heaps of information every time. If I wanted to do another line with the same thing, I just go in and type in tax and it's going to come up with that for me automatically. If it's 3 lots of tax returns, it's going to pick it up as well. So it's nice and easy. You don't have to sit there and spend hours typing lots of information. And I know particularly a lot of tradies have a lot of information that they tend to type into their invoices. And maybe if they do this, it would be much easier for them to not only prepare their invoice, they could actually do it on their phone if that stuff's already set up. You can also add to that. So you could say, put a date on there. April, right? So you can include a bit more information if you want to, but you don't have to type over and over again. The other neat feature, and I'm just going to stop sharing again while I quickly change to a different 0, which is my 0. So I don't want to give you all my information. So just give me 1 second. Okay. Share again. Okay, so here's what I prepared earlier. And the reason I can't show this on the demo company is because to be able to do this, you have to have Stripe attached. So it doesn't actually give me that. But because we have Stripe attached to quickly get payments from our clients, we have the ability to do this. And it's a new feature, which means I've just done up a little invoice to myself here. What I can now do is I can go up here and click send SMS. And it will actually send an SMS to my phone number or to my client's phone number, who happens to be me, with a link to pay the invoice. So we're always having trouble getting invoices paid. This is another way to make it a little bit less difficult for someone to pay your invoice. So have a look at that feature if you're using Xero, if you have Stripe attached. If you don't have a payment method attached to your Xero file, I would highly recommend you look into that. And again, we can help you with that sort of thing. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to share the webinar again, hopefully. Okay, Jen, can you just tell me that we're on the webinar again?
Yep, like that. Yep.
Thank you. Cool. Okay, so now I want to talk a little bit about having a tech stack. So what is a tech stack? How do we measure how much time it's saving us, or how can we, can't measure it perfectly, but how to give us a bit of an idea? And then where do we actually go and find what is the best technology for you? So let's start with what is a tech stack. And I want to show you, this is a picture. It's a bit old. It was actually taken from a couple of years ago from an organisation called Clarity Street, who works specifically with accountants to help them with their tech stack. But it's actually quite similar to the tech stack that we're using in some respects. Some of these items have changed. They might have different names now and what have you. But this is kind of what we're talking about here. So with an accounting firm, we start off with Xero as our, for us, we have Xero as our practice software, and also what we use for our clients, for most of our clients. So we have Xero Green and Xero Blue, which are at the center of all of this. And if you're using Xero, or if you're using MYOB, all of these things apply. You then can have other apps that then connect in to do different things for your business. So Xero can do so much, MYOB can do so much, but there's other things that make things work better. So I'm going to just quickly run through some of these things that we use just to give you an explanation of what kind of thing I'm talking about when it comes to a tech stack. So yes, we use Xero Green. Yes, we use Xero Blue. We also use Practice Protect, which is our security system. So for all of my staff, all of our team, we have Practice Protect, which basically gives an extra layer of protection to all of our computers, and we can't log into our programs without logging into Practice Protect. It's really quite a handy, great program. It doesn't really do anything from everyday point of view except for protect our stuff. But if I go overseas, for example, it won't let me log in. So if someone's trying to log into my computer in another country, it's not going to let them log in. If I do go overseas and I tell them that I'm going overseas, then it will let me log in. So it does protect your computer in that way, but it also manages all the passwords and things like that. We use Ignition. It's now called Ignition. It used to be called Practice Ignition. That's how we do our engagement letters. It's how we also collect a lot of our payments for our fixed fee clients. So, you know, that is part of our tech stack. We use Zoom and we use Microsoft Office. So we do have meetings on Teams and on Zoom. We don't use Google Hangouts because we're not a Google firm. We're a Microsoft firm. So each person has their own one. We don't actually have a HR program at the moment because our team isn't big enough to really require one. But if you're in a bigger organisation, HR programs are sometimes very useful. We, again, don't particularly use Receipt Bank, which is now called Dext or HubDoc, but a lot of people do. This is to capture invoices and to be able to record them in Xero. So Xero itself has an expense feature. There's another program we sometimes use called Data Molino. So there are those apps that allow you to take a photo with your phone and capture expenses. What we do use now is another program called Wheel. What Wheel does is it's actually like a credit card, a virtual credit card that we can then give to our team, and we can put budgets on it and allow them to use that credit card to purchase things such as stationery, or if they're going on a travel, you know, if they're traveling. So that's a really cool little program that I like using. Up here we have all of some of the things that we use to do like prediction stuff or forecasting. There's a couple of different ones there. We actually use Futurely. That's my choice of one. Fathom and Spotlight are other ones out there, but Futurely is my favorite. For signing, we don't use DocuSign or Adobe, but we do use FuseSign. So I'm sure if you've a client of ours, you will have got a FuseSign notification in the past. I don't know that FuseSign was around at that time that this was produced. For our document management, we use FYI. For our corporate secretary, we use Now Infinity, and for our super funds, we use Class. So we have a whole lot of tech stack that we use, and they all tend to integrate with each other. And if I was to try and do all this stuff manually, it would never happen. So it's just part of doing business. Now have a think about what is in your, what you do in your business and what technology could be helping you. The next thing I wanted to talk about is cost benefit. And so it's a bit of a hard thing to do. A lot of people do complain a little bit about how much technology is costing them. And I'm one of them. I had to do, for those of you who remember, about a year ago, we had a technology boost that was available for small business. And it was based on how much technology spend you had, you'd get an extra 20% tax deduction, up to $100,000. And I thought, okay, I probably can take advantage of this. And I was actually surprised that the $100,000 applied to me. So that's how much we're spending on technology, not just on apps, but on technology. So we do have to take our technology very seriously. We do have a lot of sensitive data and we need to be very careful with that. So, but yeah, it is a necessary expense. But it's also, for me, it's how much time can we save? So part of it is actually understanding your charge rate. And I just wanted to talk about something that I was introduced when I first started working as an accountant, which is called the rule of threes. But this should apply to anyone really, on how much is your time worth? And so some people have a charge rate, and I do have a charge rate. My charge rate's $400 an hour, so mine's pretty easy to work out. But if you're not sure what your charge rate is because you don't charge on an hourly basis, this is how you can kind of basically have a little bit of a working out of what it is. So the first third of your charge rate is your actual wages. And that would include in that superannuation and workers' compensation, but it also should be adjusted for productivity as well. So just keep in mind that we don't all work 100% of our 38-hour week on productive work. But essentially that first third is for that. The second third is for overhead. So that's for things like rent, technology, telephones, all those sorts of things that as a business owner you do have to have just to run your business. And then the third is for profit, because at the end of the day we're doing this so we can make money. So if you start working on that basis, that is how you can kind of come up with a bit of a charge rate of how much your time is worth. And then you have a look at the technology that you're using and have a look at how much time is that actually saving you. If it's taking you 3 hours to do an invoice, like you're invoicing every night, and then you can do some things to make it quicker. If it's taking you hours and hours to chase up your accounts receivable, and you can do something as simple as having something like Stripe attached, and you can send an SMS to your clients to follow up on getting a bill paid, that's all saving you time. So you can start to assess whether it's worth your while to have these technologies. Are you using them? All sorts of things like that. You really need to have a look at it because there's a lot out there. But I think in general, you should be able to see a benefit that's more than the cost of the technology. If it's not, you probably shouldn't have it. But if it is better, then it's probably worth paying that bit of money for that technology. There's also a couple of things that you need to consider as well, and that is also just the accuracy. Is it making it much more accurate by using technology? And also, is it necessary from a compliance point of view? So something such as payroll, we have to have a technology-based solution these days because of single touch payroll. So you can't avoid technology when it comes to something like single touch payroll and superannuation processing and things like that. So where do we go to find our app stack or to get some advice on that. So if you're in Xero, you can use the Xero App Store. And again, I'm just going to stop sharing so I can actually show you what the Xero App Store looks like. Let's stop sharing. Give me one sec. And how to find it. Okay. All right, so when you're in Xero, you can come up here to the name of your company and click on App Store. Now, MYB have app stores too. So if you're on MYB, you can do exactly the same thing. And here it will actually come up with the ability to search for what it is you're wanting. So let's say you're in construction. Input in construction, probably helps if you can spell. It's coming on with a few different options here. So let's do construction project management, and it will come up with a whole bunch of options of apps that actually connect back to Xero. You can then go through and have a look at them. You can click on them to find out a little bit more information, how many reviews they are. It also will then take you to usually takes you to their website as well if you would like to. Just gives you somewhere to start with. What is it that you need? How can I find what's going to work for me? Even little things like, if I go back to the top, it'll let me. If I go back to home and try looking for a payment solution, online payments, here are all of the different payment solutions that they have. You can have a look into the ones that are going to be best for your business. So there's all sorts of things that not just industry specific. It might be based on what the problem is that you're trying to solve. And most of these are really quite cheap. Yes, there's an expense, but it is probably saving you. And again, do that cost benefit analysis. Okay, let's go back to the webinar. Okay. All right. So we've talked about technology. I'm now going to talk about a couple of hacks that I use to try and make my day a little bit more efficient. Everyone has their different things. I'm not saying it's rules to live by, but they are things that you might look at incorporating into your day. We certainly use some of these here in Jigsaw, and I definitely use some of them. So the first one I want to talk about is habit stacking. And if you've ever read James Clear's Atomic Habits, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't, I highly recommend you read it. It's probably one of the best books I've read in management kind of books. If you don't like reading, get Audible, get it on Spotify, listen to it. But the thing that I got out, everyone gets different things out of these books, but the thing I got out of it was habit stacking. And what that means is you kind of get a habit that you always think that you're not going to do and stack it with a habit that you always do. So as an example, you may not like reconciling your bank account every day, but if you stack that with the habit of in the morning, I have a cup of coffee. First thing in the morning when I get to work, I have a cup of coffee. As soon as I get that coffee in my hand, I'm going to go into my bank account and I'm going to reconcile my accounts. And then tomorrow I'm going to do the same thing. And then you start to get to the stat, it becomes natural. You do that. The coffee in your hand is the thing that reminds you you've got to do it. But after a while, it just becomes a normal habit. So have a think about something that you struggle to do. And is there something that you do on a regular basis? It might be that you watch the news at night and that during that time, you're going to upload all of the receipts for today that you've taken a photo or you'll sit there and take a photo while you're watching the news. It can also be used for things that you don't really like doing, such as if you don't really like exercising, but you actually stack that with the habit of when I'm on the treadmill, I can read a book that I like or I can listen to a podcast. It does make it sometimes a little bit more enjoyable as well. So try habit stacking, certainly to get your accounts up to date. Really important that they're up to date. There's no point looking at them in 3 months' time and trying to remember what you did yesterday. So the second thing I live by is what's called the 5-second rule, and that is came from Mel Robbins. A lot of you know Mel Robbins. She's become incredibly popular of late due to her Let Them Theory book that has just been released, which is by far the biggest book out at the moment, and highly recommend you read that. But before she had the Let Them Theory, she had the 5-second rule. And again, there's a whole book around it. But essentially it is, if you don't want to do something, there's something you don't want to do, like maybe make a client call because you know it's going to be a bit difficult, or get out of bed in the morning because it's cold. You count backwards in your head from 5 to 1, and then you just do it. And it's amazing how it works. So try it next time there's something you keep procrastinating about, whether it be getting out of bed or ringing someone that you don't want to call. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and do it. The third hack I want to talk about is my Sunday night planning session. So every Sunday night, I usually get out my diary. I have actually a diary that has a plan for the week, and I sit there and I spend a bit of time writing out what I did well last week, what I can improve on, what I've got coming up in the week ahead. I can block out time if I need to, but just so I go into the week with my head ready to go. If you don't want to do it on Sunday night, do it on Monday morning. And I actually listened to another influencer whose name escapes me right now, but she calls it her Monday morning meeting with herself. Give yourself some time, maybe habit stack it with a cup of coffee, go through your diary for the week and actually plan for the week ahead. It does make things a lot better when you know what's happening. And the other thing that I use religiously now is Calendly, which is a piece of technology that allows me to set up my calendar. For those of you who've made an appointment with me, you've no doubt used Calendly. You click on the link, you can see my availability, and you can book in an appointment through that program. That saved me so much time. It used to be that someone would go, "Can I come and see you, Jo?" Email back, "Yes, when would you like to come?" Thursday would be good. Okay, I have 11 o'clock on Thursday. I can't do 11 o'clock on Thursday, but I could do 10 o'clock on Friday. You know what I mean? Like back and forward, back and forward, back and forward. Calendly links into my calendar. It knows when I'm available. It tells you when I'm available, and you can book into my calendar. Makes so much sense, and it's using technology for the benefit of being more efficient. Okay, last one before we finish is a little bit about AI. And I know it is kind of scary, but once you start playing with it, it's amazing. And I am really loving using AI at the moment. So I wanted to give you a bit of just a couple of real quick things that I'm using. I'm certainly no expert. I'm certainly just dabbling with it. But what I do want to say is think about that Rogers bell curve that we looked at, and think about where you're on that journey to AI. Like I said, depending on your industry, I feel like we're probably still in early adopters, but we're not late, but we're starting to get into that middle territory now. So it's really time to jump on if you haven't already. One of the things I just want to make really clear to you, if you are going to be putting sensitive data into the AI generated machines, you really need to have a paywall. So you need to be paying for the product. The product that we're using is Copilot, which is the Microsoft product. And we do pay for me and Martin, and we're testing it out for the rest of the team, and we will be rolling it out to them very soon so that they can use it as well. But that means that any data that we're putting into that is not getting circulated to the general population and stays within our AI generated stuff. So what am I using it for? So the first thing I'm loving is the AI note taker. So not only is this on Copilot for Teams, but it's also on Zoom. So if you're using Zoom, use the AI note taker and have a little look at what comes out of that. What you'll find is at the end of the meeting, it will summarize the meeting. So yesterday, as an example, we had a little board meeting for one of the organizations I'm involved in. We got Copilot to sit there in the Teams meeting and asked it just to listen in. And at the end, I just said, "Can you please now do minutes for the meeting?" And it came up with perfect minutes. It was amazing. Within about a minute, I had who attended the meeting, the times, what we discussed, what were the follow-up tasks, all beautifully written. We will read it and we might make a few adjustments, but my God, that saved us so much time. So have a think about using AI Note Taker in either Zoom or Teams. We also, what I've been doing is if I have a meeting with someone who's not on Teams or Zoom, because I do meet with people in person, is following that meeting, I will then go and have a meeting with myself to do the same thing. So I'll just go onto Teams and I'll go and have a quick meeting with myself to talk about what I just discussed with the client. And then I'll ask Teams to do some minutes and follow up tasks out of that. So they can also transcribe exactly what I said if I wanted to, but generally there's lots of ums and ahs in there. Research. So one of the best ways to use the AI tool for research is to actually interview yourself to get the facts straight. So first of all, I'm saying, like, can you please tell me this? And I do say please, even though I probably don't need to be courteous to my AI tool. But one of the things I'm learning is that actually having really good context about what it is you're asking them, and then asking AI to ask you more questions to hone in on what it is you're really trying to achieve makes a big difference. So you could go and say, here's the situation, and then say, before you answer me, ask me 3 questions that will help you refine what it is I'm trying to achieve, or ask me as many questions as you can to be 95% confident in your result. And you'll be interested to see what questions it asks you. Of course, you're putting more data in, but it does certainly make that research a lot better. Also, when you're researching, always make sure there's references there and then go back and check those references to verify the facts. Sometimes AI is trying to please you, not necessarily answer the question correctly. So always go back and verify the facts. And then, of course, the other one is to refine your writing, particularly with some things that are quite generic, such as maybe marketing tools. If you've done writing, put it into AI and ask them to see if they can write it a little bit more effective. You can ask them to write it in a different tone, use it from that point of view. So they're the 4 things I'm probably doing at the moment. I'm keeping practicing, and I hope you start practicing as well. Okay, so we're kind of coming to the end, but do you need some help with technology? Look, we aren't experts at every part of it, but we certainly can help you if you're feeling a little bit lost with all of this. We can point you in the right direction. In some of the things, we certainly can help you really to refine your practices so that you're getting the best use out of technology, or we can point you in the right direction. So please feel free to contact us if there's anything we can do to help. So that's come to an end. Is there any questions? And if people would like to come off mute and ask questions, I'm more than happy for that to be the case. We might probably stop recording now. So feel free to come and jump in and ask questions, and we can, see if we can answer them.